It's snowing here in the mountains again today. Yep, winter is definitely here for those of us living at 4,000 feet above sea level at 53 degrees north. And I suspect that's the case for even places south of us. So, and then there's me, who I haven't had a good sleep. It's the afternoon, I haven't eaten yet. I feel very tired. I woke up at like 5 in the morning and could not get back to sleep. And here I am now, weak from lack of food. I do have some chicken soup cooking. And I'm weak from poor sleep. And the elements are terrible outside. It seems like the perfect day to train Kung Fu. In fact, let's talk about training in weakness today. I want to pick up on something I said yesterday and use that as the subtext for this discussion going forward. My idea yesterday being that martial arts is for everyone, that it's not just for the tough or athletic. In fact, I'd like to draw a distinction between martial art and martial sports, right? So we do have some people who are very good fighters who are in martial sports, and they're out there and, don't mess with them because they know what they're doing. But when I think of martial arts, I think of something greater than that. I think of control of our body, our energy, precision. I think of what I learned through Robert, which is training in weakness, that he was an old man already when I first started learning from him 21 years ago. There was no way I was going to touch him. He was just too sensitive, too fast, too direct. He knew that center line so well. Robert would show up at my farmhouse I was staying at, the Dudgeon farmhouse, get me up at like 6:30 or 7 in the morning, get up. And the first time I was like, oh, hey, he's literally in my room, waking me up out of my bed. And like, oh, hey, I actually am awake. I'm just not up. Hey, you're here. Okay, great. So that I want to be hospitable. I'm like, Robert, let me get you some tea, or would you like some coffee? And hey, I'll turn on the pans and I'll heat them up so you can have some eggs. And he says, no. And this became a theme with him. And I began to understand it later on, as he said, I show up first thing in the morning because he's going from Gunter down to Madoc to do whatever business he had to do. He could easily stop on the way back once he's done his business in town. But no, he purposely came to my house first thing in the morning, got me out of bed. Not when I'd already been eating, not when I'd already been training and moving in the day, not when I'd already had my physicality about me. He wanted me to learn in weakness. And his point was to learn how to do things correctly and to use as little energy as possible. Well, the best way to learn how to use as little energy as possible is to train with as little energy as possible. And so find yourself when you start in seemingly weak states where by noon I'd be still standing there with him doing things, and he's talking and he's making me just stand there. And then he's like, pull your thumb in, get your finger straighter. And he's like correcting me, and I'm standing there. He's like, get that arm up, okay. And then he's still talking, and I'm just relaxing. Okay, yeah, you need to push your anus up a little further there and move your hips. Oh, there, look how square you feel. And then he just keep talking and talking and talking. And by noon, I'm like weak from lack of sugar, and he wouldn't let me drink water. And I know a lot of you people who train in the physicality and the sport of martial arts are going to hear this kind of stuff and be like, dude, you're crazy. Someone is going to come up who's big and tough and knock you out. And that's a possibility. I'm not suggesting that you use weakness as your go-to in life. I'm suggesting that proper application of your energy, proper usage of your timing, proper knowledge of your center line, proper positioning, proper angles are going to mean that you have to do much less to acquire much more effect, right? And that's the idea. So until that point, I'd only ever learned, because I started in karate when I was like 7, and by the time I was 8, I was in some competitions, and eventually I got out of karate. But then I'd hooked up with a friend who people from our punk scene and back home would remember, Will, who was a crazy martial artist. And we had this neo-Nazi who was bothering us kids in Belleville at the time when I was about 20 years old. Once he found out that we were partying with Will, and so I'd spend hours at night with Will drinking beer, and he'd be showing me Eskrima and Shotokan karate. And he'd be like one of those little guys who'd pull out a sword and be like, all right, kill me with this sword. I'd be like, dude, we're drunk and it's 2 a.m. And he'd be like, by the time I had my hands up, he'd already have me, right? So, but Will, again, coming from Japanese traditions, jiu-jitsu was a big one he was in. Then I went to university and I started learning in the grappling class and jiu-jitsu class. And then we would spar, so it was MMA basically. And then we'd spar with the Taekwondo class, again, learning all Japanese-based arts. And the reason why I'm kind of talking about this is until I'd met Robert, I'd only ever learned martial arts from a position of strength where I need to be strong, ready, power. And you look at like the historic Japanese culture, where some of that comes from. I mean, they were a winning culture war-wise for a long time. And you know what happens when you're really good for a long time is you fall into cultural tendencies with your practices that eventually become weaknesses. And then you find yourself at the end of all of it at war with the United States. And those long-held beliefs of Bushido that your army employs don't work, and you throw away lives needlessly and pick a war that you really shouldn't had no business being in the first place. So they lost their way in their understanding of martial arts. It was always from a position of strength, right? And so what I liked when Robert came to me and he's talking to me about how Yin Wing Chun, she learned from Ning Mui, and very different because only Wing Chun has women that started the martial art. I don't know if that's actually true. I don't personally care if it's true. If the Shaolin temple burned and Ning Mui had to flee and she taught Wing Chun to a woman named Wing Chun, I don't know if those stories are true. In fact, I don't care if they're true because there's a parable within it that matters, which is these small little weak-statured people who became very efficient at protecting themselves and very spiritually aligned and very strong at practicing medicine and very strong at practicing combat and very strong at practicing things even blindfolded. Great sense of energy in themselves and their surrounding. Great ability to exert power even though you're a very little person, right? So when you see all those videos of Ip Chun and he was 95-year-old man and he's doing Chi Sao with a 20-something-year-old kid who's obviously quite good at Wing Chun, but the kid just cannot get his arms through on the old man because he's just so soft and so good. And I know that there's examples of that in other martial arts of old people becoming very soft, but I think the beauty of Wing Chun is it emphasizes that from the very beginning, that's through softness comes power. And that's something that from like day one is the point. Strength isn't. In fact, you use that strength against you because you're going to assume that they have the advantage, that they are stronger than you, that they are better than you, that they are faster than you, they're better fighters, and you have to now win, right? So when I look at the difference in that history compared to the Japanese history of strength, I've learned something personally I had to unlearn a lot of things to learn what I've learned about through Chinese martial arts. We all become weak in time. When you see videos of Chu Shan Tin and he's in his 80s and the great amount of force this Wing Chun master, his kung fu is so good and he's so soft, but his relaxation through his body is so, he can expand his joints, he can expand the amount of him that's there with his presence. It's hard to explain those things, how an old man can put his hand on you and you can push so hard against him and he can just and do all the gear turning and exert that force that's inside, sink it down and just, you got nothing, young man. That's what I want is a martial art because I'm not going to be able to kick over my head forever. I'm 43. I can't do those things. I understood this quickly when I met Robert and I seen just how simple everything he did was and how I just could not touch that old man. After a few months of learning, I became good at my center line and He could not touch me. Despite that, I could not touch him, and I don't think to this day I could if I came and met with 80-year-old Robert. I think that self-defense is a non-issue. Like, I don't really want to teach self-defense in the sense that I think if you become good at Wing Chun, that's just gonna happen, right? And what I want is like a willpower and a sensitivity that very simply I'm gonna find exactly the little things I need to do to seize advantage and win. I think that's what'll make me ultimately better. But in terms of like self-defense, I think that when we think about the world of martial sports, and a lot of that's Japanese in origin, there's rules. It's a padded environment, first of all. Now, the real world is very hard. So when you're in conflict in real life, there's going to be objects that are solid. The ground is hard. The walls are hard. There's cement that if you hit your head off of it can kill you. So then there's, well, I look at the eyes. Well, I look at the hands. So I look at the body. Well, it's like, well, if you look at all that, then you're going to miss the guy who's stabbing you from over here, right? So you have to be able to see far and close, see nothing and everything at once, right? Pay attention to certain things. Sure, I pay attention to the elbows because that's where the hands are very fast, but the elbows are not. So the elbows tell me where the hands are going to go. So I pay attention to the elbows, but I don't look at the elbows. I'm not staring at them because once I get caught focusing in on that, I'm now playing that game of athletes, right? And so then you're going to do this because you train in mixed martial arts, and that's great. Now we're in the street conflict and you're coming in, head down, protecting your chin, and okay, you're dead. So your go-to defense mechanism has what seems to be good for the ring is not what's good for the street, right? You're probably going to come across people who are bigger and stronger and armed, and you need to be able to maintain yourself, maintain your kung fu evenly without emotion and execute. It's not easy, right? However, just because you are at disadvantage does not mean you can not win. So I just think being caught into the trap of strength, I'm not always going to be at my strongest. I'm going to be sitting in a chair when some dude sucker punches me. I'm going to be in the forest and a bear is going to charge me and I'm going to wait to the last second and punch his nose. That's a meditation I think of often because I live in grizzly bear country, and I know many people have defended themselves without bear spray. The thing's 2,000 times more powerful than my nose, and when you hit that bear's nose hard, whether it's with pepper spray or with your fist, you have a much better chance of surviving. So that's a good example of like trying to just get myself into the focus of the situation I'm in, relax within it, relax my joints, relax my body, accept the situation I'm in, and then bend the situation to my will, the way I want it to go. And I think that's something that good Kung Fu will help you with, but I think that's also a matter of strength that some people are going to have to work at very hard to make themselves bigger in the moment and be there and succeed and just be like, this, got it. It's that very simple approach to when your car starts spinning off the road and having that focused mind at that moment. When you start slipping down the side of a bank, when you're climbing the mountain, to have that focused mind to relax the body and go soft and let your gravity do its work. To have proper responses mechanized into us so that when I'm an old man, I'm not coming up there trying to be all musclies because I got some young punks that are gonna stab me. I need to have Kung Fu that's usable from the time I'm young to the time I'm 90 years old. So that's why I like the position of weakness. That's why I like training in weakness. That's why I like focusing on those internal aspects of my Kung Fu and myself, especially now that I'm in sobriety, I'm really focusing on these things, which I came to again and again and again over time, but I wasn't ready for. I'm at that point where I feel ready for that next stage of my growth, and that next stage is definitely internalizing that Kung Fu deeper, internalizing that mind state deeper. This has come in handy for me on the forest fire line when there's just chaos going on. There's like people yelling over this for this guy needs that, there's a helicopter in the air, we gotta jump out of the forest so he can dump his buckets. There's so much going on. Then there's the fire itself, then there's the weather, the elements, lots that has to be taken into account. And you see me out there in the fire line almost with a half grin and my eyes a little bit narrow, and I'm always looking every direction and being completely there, not focusing on any one thing, rising to the occasion, because I'm small and a forest fire is very big. But with a little bit of cooperation and the right tactics, and if I've done these things enough times, I know how I'm going to execute it. That confidence comes, right? So I find like becoming a good firefighter is much like becoming a good martial artist. It's soup time now. I just want to add that by no means, don't ever call me Sifu or Sensei or Master or anything like that. I'm just Joey, talking about my ideas about Kung Fu, sharing my ideas that I have. Take them, if you will, use what's good for you. In my humility, I'm not pretending to be something I'm not. Part of the purpose of these videos, when I started making them, was to show one of my teachers where I'm at and go deep with him, so that next time we actually are in person, he'll have a lot of knowledge of where I'm actually at, and we can actually move forward instead of just catching up on where are you at. So that's the other purpose. But thank you for hearing me. I'm a mountain man in British Columbia, just doing my thing. See you next time. And literally most of the time when I hit my punching bag, I hit it about that hard because I'm practicing the relaxation, man, not the strength. If I want to hit the strength, it's there. In fact, through my relaxation, it's there. That's just sending my hand. How much power can I pull out from relaxation? I don't know how hard I can hit this thing if I really wanted to. I feel like in order to hit it harder, I have to go softer to do it. But watch when I just put my hand through and don't try to punch it. It's almost the same amount of power, right? Because the joints are straight through, my positioning's good. That's literally just sending my hand forward. It's not trying to actually exert force. I'm not spending energy to do it. There's more. There's always more power if I want it. Hitting a 120-pound bag around without actually, I haven't lost my breath. You know, all I did was just send my hands at it. So using internal force as a method of quickness, as opposed to using my strength and speed, right? If I'm using my strength and speed, but I'm not using it through internal power, you know, I can hit pretty hard like that, but wouldn't I be much better off just slowing down those chain punches if I'm in there, and then continuing to walk through because that guy's moving backwards. So I just got to continue to walk through and keep delivering that, right? That's not how things start, but that's how sometimes they end. They start coming off their gravity and you just continue down that line. I like to just hit it. So most of the time when I'm training, I just focus on making contact and changing angle. I can throw them hard, I can throw them soft, doesn't matter. If I throw them too hard, the bag jumps, and then I have to change my timing. Self-defense is a non-issue. Why do you need self-defense? That's my question, first of all. For a lot of young guys particularly, you could do with an attitude adjustment. You could do with avoiding places where trouble happens. Years ago, I guess now, but still seems recent in my mind because that's what happens as you get older. I got dummied really hard and I saw stars at the pub. And what I learned was to stop shooting my mouth off, to stop being drunk. I quit drinking, to avoid angry, aggressive people like that. I could have easily just got up and walked out. But no, I pushed for trouble and I got trouble, and that's what I deserved. So good on me. That's the one real loss in my adult life, and it was humiliating and it hurt bad. Why do you need self-defense? For women, it can be a different story. And I guess that's why I tend to think about martial arts in terms of weakness against strength, because I tend to view my odds as being, I don't ever want to be hit like that again, and I don't trust that anyone I face isn't going to hit me like that again. So I assume I'm always at a weakness. If one of those shots get through, everything that I've learned goes out the window. That's the truth of self-defense. It used to be that I'd be walking down the street in Vancouver, and because I walk with my head up and I tend to scan around what's going on all the time, I'd see guys 3 or 4 blocks down, it's midnight, and I don't like the look of that crew, the way they're milling about. So I just go another direction and avoid them. It was that easy. If you are in a place and you come across other human beings, make eye contact naturally, show no change in your expression, give a nod, keep looking. Acknowledge those tough guys when they're looking, but don't show any change of expression. Show nothingness, give back nothing. And this summer, my fire crew and I were eating at the pub in Williams Lake, and we went out for a smoke. Then there was these guys that are quite drunk, and they're from a pipeline crew, and they're trying to offer us jobs. They're not understanding that we're forest firefighters, and tomorrow we're going back and fighting fire some more. And, I just didn't like the feeling of it. And I finished my smoke and said nothing and walked in, and being the leader of the crew, the boys shortly followed in afterwards, and why be around those guys? I don't like their energy. I don't like the unpredictability of them. So a lot of self-defense can be fixed by your attitude, by your attentiveness to detail. Sit in a place. I don't like to sit with my back to the wall. I just never have, so I like to sit with my back to the wall. I mean, not to the room. So that's just a personal preference that I've always been comfortable with, because I work in the forest. I tend to need my head up for so many reasons, right? There's so much going on out there. being aware of every little detail like that. I'm gonna show you something now. I'll show you this. So I'm gonna hit this punching bag, but I'm not gonna use any muscle in my arm to do it, right? So this is where my Manta stuff is really handy because it has that looseness in our hands. So I twist my hips to get my arms moving up. I step into the target, right? So I didn't use one muscle in my arm. I just flung my arm up. That's not a matter of strength. That's not a matter of anything that I have that you don't have. That's me being so loose and soft that I can transfer my energy easily without even using the muscles in my arm to do so, right? So in our Wing Chun, when we're training these exercises, we're building the mechanics for that to really effortlessly and lightly, sensitively control our arms, right? Sensitivity development. So again, all that was I just shifted my body upwards to get my hand to come up, and then I sent my hand, right? In this case, I just stepped into the target and hit it. I can do the same thing with my fingertips and take some eyes out, right? Or throat. I can, with the looseness of that arm, with the relaxation comes the power in which hitting, which comes from my mind to the target, shouldn't be a matter of using my muscle to do it. It should be intention, hit. And so people think there's only one strike in Wing Chun, but I argue that wherever your hand is, you can send that energy out. If you have an advantageous way to do the Bruce Lee, of course, you're supposed to have hand up if you do that. You do that, right? Because it's not about, you've learned the mechanics of how that hand motion comes out in our strikes, that upward motion, which tends to carry our target up off their center of gravity. So you've learned that, but now it's just a matter of throwing the hand if you want to use that energy in the hand. And that's what, maintaining that internal structure, both mind, body, in positioning. It's too bad you can't see my knees and my feet right now and my hips, but how I move that body without moving my body, I can send my arm from here without moving my arm. I move my feet and send the energy. My body weight transfers to my hand in doing so. So I just don't think that tension is healthy for us. I think that you spend all your life, say, at a computer, and then you get up and go to the gym and you do the same thing, and you know, it's not helping your body with its alignment. It's doubling down on what you've been already doing all day, in a sense, right? Relaxation is where our movement comes from. And that's what I tell my kids. You don't need self-defense. You have teachers. You go talk to your teachers. You know, no one's trying to stab you and kill you yet. So you don't need to learn life-threatening techniques, children, right? So train with our training is a fighting system, but it's just so much more than that, right? When you're really in self-defense mode and you have no choice, everything's a weapon. The wall's a weapon, the counter's a weapon. Heck, I can grab just about anything and manipulate it in such a way that here's a glass. That's so easy. You realize attacker's coming. Uh-oh. Throw glass at face. Attacker puts up hands to protect face. You take over center line. Trap, arm in, step, hit face. Right? This isn't fancy stuff. So in our Sulam Tao system, that all comes together. That mind and body, our sense of direction, our sense of how to move our feet, our sense of timing, our sense of center line, though, number one, because our center line isn't just from me to you, it's from my head to my ass, so down to the ground. That's one of my center lines. Then there's a center line to the target, right? So now I got this center line to the target. Then there's another center line, which is the target's gravity mass, if you can imagine, sort of like a color spectrum of where gravity's sitting in the human body at any given time. And it's going to move up and down as people are, but it's generally going to sit in that. That's what you want, is to have your gravity down and centered, right? So when you sense that their gravity's off, you adjust your center line to that attack angle with that mass of gravity in mind. And that's where we can send the energy back really efficiently, especially when it comes at us in that moment. In Sulam Tao, we learn how to put that all together so that you're not reacting, chasing the hands. You're not reacting to their voice or face. You're not reacting, that you're just there. You're just there. And when it comes time to move, you move. You're not fighting. Maybe they're fighting you. Maybe you're going to give it back. But it's not about self-defense or fighting once you're good. Okay, that's what I got for today, this time for sure. Thanks, everybody. I'm just talking in my house here because it's snowing and I'm bored. So thanks, everybody, for coming in and hearing what I have to say about Kung Fu. See you next time.